Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to explain how to install a Sony XAV-AX100 head unit into a 2011 Scion XB. Right here I'm just going to be showing all the necessary items that we'll need for this installation. So right here on my table I have all of the items that I need. So I'll just go through them quickly. So first, obviously, is the head unit, and I decided to go with the XAV-AX100 instead of the 1000 because I wanted to support Android Auto as well as Apple CarPlay. Just in case I ever decide to sell the car in the future. So I bought this unit off of crutchfield.ca. I'm gonna put all the links down below in the description box. And so when I selected this radio to purchase, Crutchfield added or suggested to me two other items to purchase at the same time. And one of these was it's like a little kit for holding the radio, I believe, in place. Let's see what it says. Yeah, it's just kind of like, it goes on each side of the radio here. And so, I've never used this before, so we'll see if that even helps. The other item is this Radio Pro 4. It's an interface made for particularly Toyota, Scion, and Lexus. And this one is the RP4.2-TY11. And this is the one that was recommended by Crutchfield when I purchased the Sony. And so I purchased this option because I wanted to keep the steering wheel controls. I use the steering wheel controls a lot on my car, so I wanted to keep that when I upgraded to this Sony one. Another thing I bought was zip ties. There's going to be a lot of cables in this interface, so I figured that zip ties would be helpful to keep everything together. Electrical tape, but I don't know if I'll be using this. Most likely I'll just use the zip ties. So another thing that I also purchased at Crutchfield was these wire harnesses because I decided to not solder my connections. I just figured this was my first wiring project and I don't really want to get it wrong. I feel like with this, if I ever make a mistake, I can just, unscrew it and, fix it. Whereas soldering is a bit more permanent. I know it's cleaner and definitely more professional, but I think in my case, it being my first time, I'll just use these ones. And I heard a lot of good reviews for this, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm gonna unbox the Radio Pro 4. I've already done a few of the steps, so I'm gonna explain what I did. So the Radio Pro 4 comes with a few things. So I'll just show you how I did it right now, even though it's gonna look really weird. So this is what comes in the box. It's gonna look kind of messy. So you get this little center unit, and you get a whole bunch of cables. So as you can see, each connector does fit into its correct hole. So, there's not really a good chance of you making a mistake. Like this long one won't go in here. They each have their own. And so what happens is that you're gonna connect it in such a way that whether you have a non-amplified audio system, such as myself, I just have the regular Pioneer stereo, or you might have the amplified one. So the instructions tell you to plug it in here instead of in here. And then this one's just the regular connector number 2. They're just numbered. They don't really explain to you what it is, although you can kind of tell this one is like the power and the ground. And so these connectors connect to this interface, and these cables each have their connector here. And so you'll probably be thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot here, so which one goes where? But once you unplug your car stereo, you should have a good idea of where it's going to fit, like what's going to fit where. And for me, I took pictures. So I took my stereo apart and took some pictures. And from the pictures, I was able to determine that I'm going to be using these three. And so I taped it off already. So yeah, obviously you can see I did tape it off. And so these two will be unused, which is unfortunate. That means it's going to add some bulk into my dashboard, but it's okay. So these three is going to be plugged into my plugs that are sticking out of my Scion dashboard once I get to that step. And so, you know, it goes from your car to here, and then this cable here is what's going to connect to the Sony. So this is the one that I'm going to have to use my connectors that I bought. So I just need to get all these color-coded cables and connect them to my Sony. And so I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so this is the little package that you get with the Sony head unit. So you get this one, and obviously I've already done this step, but I've kind of taped all the wires. Each color represents something, and you can actually read up on that in the Sony manual. So I can actually pull that up right here. Let me just get that quickly. So this is the Sony manual, and this will tell you exactly what the colors represent on this one, right? Because this is the one that's going to connect into your Sony radio or head unit. And so I just for simplicity, I wrote down exactly what they represent. You know, like the front left speaker, rear left speaker. This one was unused. You can just read it in your instructions. Like, it tells you what exactly the REM one is. This one, I believe, and I don't really need it, so that's my unused one. And then, you know, this is the parking brake one. And so you have your Sony connector right here, which I, you know, marked all the cables, and this is the ground right here. Then, so as you can see, this is the one for Sony. This is the one that's coming out of the interface, and you can see that the colors match up, pretty much the same colors. So there's like some purples for a particular speaker. This one is the most important one for me, which is why I bought this interface, is because this is for the steering wheel. And then this little plug, this little audio jack, actually can go into the Sony. So that was my step that I did. It took me like about an hour to, you know, label everything, just because I needed to understand how the wiring was working. Like, it was pretty confusing. I know that a lot of people were reviewing the Radio Pro instructions, and they were saying that they were so complicated, and it's true, they kind of are complicated. It's a lot to digest at once, especially when you see all these cables. But if you go through the instructions, these are the instructions that come with the interface. If you read through them step by step, you know, just read through them, take your time, it actually makes sense. It's kind of complicated just because there's a lot of colors, there's a lot of wires, and I would say the most complicated part for me was figuring out which cables were not going to be used. And so I can get to that now as well. So when you look at this really complicated mess of cables, you see that there's cables from the back here which also need to be plugged into your car. So you would think that just these cables coming out from this side would be plugged into your car, but actually there's this one as well. And this is coming from the big bundle of cables here. And so what happened was that the instructions say that these three need to be connected to your stereo, right? Because the black, yellow, and red, you actually don't see them here, right? So this set of cables needs to connect to your Sony one, this one as well. And so I was thinking, well, what about these ones? Because I don't have auxiliary. Unfortunately, the Sony head unit doesn't support auxiliary. I'm gonna try to find a way to bypass that, because even though I don't use auxiliary, it would be nice to have it or to keep it. So, you know, there were these cables here, this light green, and the pink and the purple, which also can be found here. right? So there's a purple, there's a light green right here, and there's a pink one. So the instructions weren't saying whether to use those 3 colors from this one or the 3 colors from this one. So what I had to do was that, you can see here, this big chunk of cables, there was tape on it. There was Tessa tape on it. So just to better understand what exactly needed to be connected, I just cut through the tape and I was able to determine that these 3 colors here are going to a plug which I'm not going to be using. So you can see it's this plug here, which is not part of my little Scion bundle that I made earlier. So that's the only way I figured that out. But other than that, the instructions are pretty straightforward. You know, a lot of people have complained about these, but you just have to take your time to read them. I just wanted to show exactly what comes in with this head unit, because I only showed the cable up until this point. So I wanted to just, I guess, unbox it. So you get a remote, little mini remote. I mean, this is kind of useful. Maybe if people sitting in the back seat want to control your radio, I guess it would be useful to use. I don't know. Probably wouldn't use it personally. It comes with a USB cable right here. So this one is a female and a male. And so what I was trying, I'll show you later, 1 second. I'll show you on the head unit. And here is a microphone. There's a microphone right here, and this is used for phone and stuff, right? And then this is just a little strap to connect the USB. So when you're connecting your USB cable to the head unit, this is just a strap to keep it from disconnecting. And so the head unit itself is pretty cool. It's a double DIN because that's what Scion supports. So it's pretty nice. It's pretty big. And then it's a half size in the back, you know. It doesn't actually take up the whole height. And so you can see here, I'm just going to show you the back here. See if I can try to, right, so right here, so this is for your antenna. This is for your, I guess, subwoofer. These are for other speakers that you want to add on. This is for the rear view camera. This is the microphone jack. That was for the plug. This extension, I'm not too sure. I tried to look at the instructions, but I wasn't quite sure. And then this one is a remote. So this is going to be for the steering wheel controls, which is what I want. So hopefully this will work. And then the USB, well, you can see here, it's a female. Okay, so I have my 2 wires. Let me just remove the one from here. Okay, and I'm just going to follow the instructions on this posy twist harness connector kit and connect them. So here are all the connections completed. I put some electrical tape around them just to add a little bit of more protection. The connections themselves, like the connectors, were pretty good. They were pretty sturdy. Here are some unused ones. I just put them with electrical tape. And I have another cable there unused as well. Here is the parking brake connected to the ground cable. All the grounds and all the parking brakes are connected together, which will connect to the car. That's so that we can use the head unit while driving. These auxiliary were not in use, so I just decided to put some tape around them. Okay, so now I taped off the ends and taped this together because I'm not using this one. And this rear view camera, which I don't have as of yet, so I taped off the end and we'll just leave it aside. And then I taped the bunch back together, the one that I initially cut to figure out the wiring. Now I put the tape back on. Okay, so sorry for the poor lighting, but I'm in my garage and it's nighttime right now. So I just wanted to show, this is my stock head unit, which is comes with the Scion XB, and this is what I'm going to be removing. And so the step to do that, there's other videos that show, but the first step to do is to just remove this this little panel, and you can just remove it, you know, either with a little plastic pry bar, or, you know, with your hands you can jiggle it free. So I'm gonna remove that first, and that'll be the first step. So I have this part out. You can see that the part is right here. This is pretty much all there is to it right now. So I'll just close up here. You can see the bolt right there, right here, and then there's two more, one right there and then one right there. And so those four I'm going to remove. I forgot a step. There's this piece here that we need to remove, because this piece is blocking from getting to that bolt. So I'm just gonna remove that quickly. Now we can get to this bolt. So I just have this wrench right here, and I'm using, obviously it'll vary, 10mm. So the bolts are out. Now I'm going to remove the head unit. Just pull it out like this. Just being careful not to get anything snagged on anything else. And here you can see all the wires. So I'm just going to disconnect everything and leave them hanging, and then we'll go back and get the new. Okay, so the head unit is out. I have it right here, and it's in pretty good condition actually. There's nothing wrong with it. Sorry, I just wanted to change to get a more modern one. And so now you can take a look at the cables. This one is the antenna, and then this one is the USB. These are the connectors, and some of them I actually will not use. Apparently I only need to use a few of them. So yeah, now I'm gonna go get the newer head unit, and I'm gonna start connecting everything and seeing whether it works. Okay, so I took off the brackets from the Scion's OEM head unit, and I installed them on the Sony head unit using the screws that came with the Sony package. So these are shorter, they're not the OEM screws, they're the Sony ones. And so the next step will be to connect it to the car and see how everything works with all the cables plugged in. Okay, so now I have my interface here where I'm going to be plugging in the corresponding Scion plugs with what you see here. And some of them aren't going to be used at all. So it's just going to be whatever is going to connect to these three is going to connect there, plus that antenna right there. This looks like a mess right now, but I got this thing connected with the three that I actually predicted were the ones that I needed. And then there was a green flash light here, and according to the instructions, if it flashed green, then it's good. And then the ground wire right here, which is connected to the parking brake wires, as well as this ground wire, is grounded right here. So this is a chassis, I guess. I see other things in the car grounded here, so I just grounded it behind the plastic but touching the metal for this screw. So I managed to ground it with that spade little connector. So the spade is sitting behind that metal screw against the chassis, which is metal, which I'm hoping will ground it. Obviously I'm not an expert, so we'll have to try it out. And now it's just a matter of connecting everything to the Sony. And unfortunately I made a mistake with the USB. As you can see, this little gray one right here, this gray thing, is not a freaking USB. It's like smaller than USB. So I'll have to figure out how I'm gonna get the car's USB, which is in the glove compartment, in the center console, how to get that working. But I'll figure that out later. I actually got it working. It worked. That is so crazy. I didn't think I would ever get this working, but looks like it's working now. So I'm going to continue setting this up. Figure out what day it was. So now I'm just gonna keep going with the setup. And cool. Now I'm gonna try the radio. Kind of scared. Whoa. This is so cool. I never thought I would actually be able to install this. So the radio works. I don't know what this means. Anyways, press AM as well. I don't really listen to AM, so. Now, more important is the USB, which I'm going to connect to my phone to, and we'll see if that works. So I have the USB female connector right here. Ooh, right there. And then I have my iPod. Wow. So the CarPlay works. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna go on maps.